The clock strikes 12, I step into the haze. Whispers call me from 1,000 graves. Shadows dance in corners out of sight. I chase the unknown deep into the night. I hunt the fear you dare not face. In the darkness I embrace the trace. The dead, they speak their secrets shown. Welcome to the bizarre and the unknown. A flicker, a chill, a shadowed hand. The unseen lingers where I stand. Through creaking doors and empty halls, I hear the echoes of forgotten calls. I hunt the fear you dare not face. In the darkness I embrace the trace. The dead, they speak their secrets shown. Welcome to the bizarre and the unknown. And the eyes that watch from a place unreal, a touch so cold it makes you feel they're near but hidden, veiled in shade. I walk with ghosts, I'm unafraid. I hunt the fear you dare not face. In the darkness I embrace the trace. The dead, they speak their secrets shown. Welcome to the bizarre and the unknown.
Hey everybody, welcome to the very first show called the Book Club. I'll have to fix it because I forgot to put a "the" in it. This was a show recommended by the members only, and to all my members on YouTube on the members only side. Sorry I haven't done a live in a while with everything going on. I've not had a chance. Um, going to try to do something tomorrow if I get the opportunity. If not, look for real soon for me to do another members only live. This was one of two shows that was recommended. I will be also doing another show that's called Writer's Workshop, where I'm going to invite authors in to kind of have us discuss the ways that we write and the differences in them and stuff like that. And for you guys to be able to pick your name or pick out the pick out the questions you want to ask the authors. Um, yeah. I figured, being as this is a book club one, Roxanne, I figured I'd dress all sophisticated. So, and of course, this is the hat. And in my pictures, you see in my author's pictures, this is the hat. Um, Vicky. So this is the first one. So this is going to be our test run. This is the first show. This is going to be our test to see how everything goes. So please make sure to let us know in the comments how you like this or what you'd like to see a little different about this show. So we're going to start off with the first one with the very first book that I published. And I'm not talking about magazines. I'm not talking about newspaper articles. I'm talking about my very first book that I published. And if you read my books, you're going to see how my writings progressed and gotten better throughout time. Um, I still love this book, even though that I'd made several mistakes in this book, and I've had to go through and correct them and re-upload them. Um, I'm still very proud of this book because it's my first one that ever got published, and it's called. Let me bring it up here. It's called Saga of Grimsson Book One: The Beginning. Um, so while we're doing this, we'll read a little bit, and I'm going to give you guys a chance to ask questions. Why did you write it this way, or what does this mean? And this is kind of what the book club is. It's kind of like we're an actual book club. We're going to sit there and read a little bit, and we're going to talk about it and what how we felt. How the book made us feel and stuff like that. That's kind of what the point of this is. It's like our own personal book club. Uh, so you're going to notice in here on the first paragraph, the introduction, I have, hello, readers. My name is Tendenson. I am a chronicler for a man of great honor, a man picked by the great Odin himself, a man who has done so much for this world that we will never know, a Dranger who has denied his entry into Valhalla until his task is done. You ask, what is Valhalla? Well, readers, Valhalla means Hall of the Slain, and these days you know it as Valhalla. Hey, Kevin. Hey, Candy. So I know some of you guys are wondering in these books why I wrote it this way as Tendenson is reading this. I want to point out a couple things. First one, the name Tendenson, and I'll put it here in the comments here. This is his name, and how it is pronounced is like this. So the reason why guys, stop. They're playing back behind me. The reason why last names were picked like this, because this name really means that he is the son of Tind. So Tind's son, and that's why I put that in there, because that is the actual what was known as a last name at that time. Now later on they could get another name like Olaf the Brazen. At first it could be Olaf Iverson, um, Brenna Ragnar's daughter. You know, it's telling people that, hey, she is the daughter of Ragnar. Okay. Well, that's the same way with the men. And Tind's son is, hey, he's the son of Tind. So we're only using last names in this one. So, hey, Unreal. That's how I kind of wrote it. I didn't want to get into in depth, but I wanted to add some historical value to it. And the reason why I have it as Tin's son is telling the story because of the title, Saga of Grimsson. This means this has already took place, and Tinson is the one that's reading it to you to tell you the great deeds that Grimsson had done. So that's why I wrote the introduction in this format. Was it's a story, and that's what we're doing. We're getting into the story. So it goes on, says, for these reasons, I am writing this saga. So it's telling you know that Tinson was the one that wrote Grimson's sagas. Now, I have not stated yet if he is immortal or if this is somebody in the future that's written about the past of Grimsson. So I haven't quite decided how I want to get that to go yet. A little spoiler alert in Saga Graham Greene. No kidding, Unreal. We've missed you too, Vicky. Oh man, I hate hearing that. Um, I just lost my train. In book three, Revenge of the Wendigo, Grimson actually tells you his true name. So in book three is when I reveal that Grimson is not his true name. That's just the name that he goes by. So when I get done with book three, you guys will have to read it and kind of get the story behind Grimson. So for this reason, I am writing this saga. The man that we should all remember, that we should all buy a drink for when we see him, and a man that we all owe our very existence to. His name is Grimson. Grimson is the oldest man alive to date that I know of. This is due to the blessing from Odin and the tragedy of his past. So he's kind of setting you up what these books are going to be about, and that's why we've been. Oh, no worries. We get it, Vicky. We understand. It just jumped, so I've been, don't don't thread over it. We understand, sweetheart. Family, or gosh, dang it, quit doing that. Family's very important, and we know that you still love us and you still want to be here. So we're glad to see you now. Hey, Wayne. Oh, Reemson. Now, shouldn't that be Remsson? Reem's son? Or that could be a modern dialect. Instead of being Remsson, meaning Rim's son, they could have shortened it and called Rimson. Back in the days of Dane law, it would have been written Remsson. So that could be a modern day version of that, Wayne. And a lot of stuff has changed. A lot of names has changed through time. Like my last name, Testerman, was not our original name. That name came about when the three brothers came from England to North Carolina, and that's when we picked up the name Tester Man. We've had multiple versions of our name throughout history, but the current one is the one that we have now. I hate that's sad, buddy. That's sad. Yeah, I know, Candy. That's no kidding. Um, thank you for the question, Wayne. That's a good question. I hope I answered it to the best of my ability. Oh, is it? Um, so his last name is Rimson, Eric Rimson. So if he is any type of Scandinavian, Dane, Norse, Swedish, Finnish, Greenland, or Icelander, at one time your family name was probably Remsson, Rim's son. So no, not yet. So that's a very good question and a tough issue. So as you see when we get in this book, you'll see why. No. I was asking if it was his last name, Rimson. Um, so the Valkyrie is very important, and we do kind of hint on them in the books from time to time. But Valkyrie were never seen unless you had passed on. Now, people would feel a disturbance in the air or see a flicker of oddness, and they would always attach that to the Valkyrie coming to collect the honorable dead, to take him to the halls of the slain. Okay. So it wasn't like happening all the time, and you had to die a warrior's death in order to be, and you had to be a man of honor. So a lot of people think that all Norse and all Dane and Swedes and all them were Vikings. That's false. Um, in order, the Viking, it's not even called Viking. You had those that went out a Viking, which means Viking in modern days. Go a Viking means you were a pirate, you were a sea wolf, a raider. Most of your warriors in that time were Dringer. They practiced Dringskapi. And that's why you're going to see that in here. I don't call him a Viking or say, hey, Grimson's a Vikinger, which means the same thing, a pirate, a raider. Most of your warriors in that time practiced the honorable skills of Dringskapi. And that's what we're kind of focused in here. Grimson is a Dringer, and that's why you'll hear me refer that multiple times in there. He wasn't a raider. He wasn't a pirate. He was a warrior. He had a warrior's code he followed by. If you get a chance, research Dringskapi, and it's a very honorable warrior's code. I don't know why I still have that in my ear because I don't need it in there. I was listening to the music. Uh, so a lot of pop culture and stuff will say, oh, the Valkyrie this, Valkyrie that, and Valkyrie. Not every time. Not every warrior went to either Thor's Hall or Odin's Hall or Freya's Hall or Frigg's Hall. Some of them went to Mispelheim, went to Hell, Hel, Hell. The daughter of Roki and the giantess Ingerbotha. Hel was one of the three children by them two. Loki was cheating on his wife with Ingerbotha, and from there you have Finvrir, Jorgenmanther, and Hel. Hel is half alive and half dead. Half of her body is beautiful and gorgeous. Her other half is decayed and grotesque. So Hel was named after her, and she is the queen of Hell. And that's actually where we get the modern term Hell from. Is actually from her. How do you want to know what to spell? I missed it here. I'm sorry, guys. Dringskapi. Uh, let's see if I can remember off the top of my head. Uh, try that. That ought to get you close. I'm trying to remember off the top. It's hard to. Actually, I guess I could look it up. Give me a second here. I think it's that way. Let me look it up and I'll show you guys. If my computer did, we got rain going on, so my computer's being a little slow today. Actually, I spelled it wrong. It's supposed to be Scapy. Sorry about that. So yeah, so most of your warriors there in that time were Dringer. They fought with an honor, with a code. There it is. Oh, I was close. So I'm going to highlight it, copy it, and put it in here. There you guys go. Um, let me get caught up. Make sure I didn't miss any. Let's see here. Okay, I got past that. So okay, that is so that's half true, Candy. Yes, sometimes the wives or the slave women okay, there goes the gremlins again. Yeah, it's raining here. Um, can you guys see me again? Yeah. Yeah. I should be back. Let me know if you guys can see me again and hear me. Hey, white trash. Am I still going? Am I still live with you guys? Okay, good, good. Thank you, Manisha. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, we got rain going on, so it's jacking with all my internet and stuff. So we're going to try to work it through here. So let's this book here has got 16 chapters, 178 pages, 59,467 words. So we'll continue on here with the introduction. And like I said, you guys got any questions? Feel free. And if I miss them, just try to catch my attention again, and that way. Oh no, Vicky. Um, I'll try to answer them best I can. So, um, I will. I will reveal this later in the saga. Grimson's first fight has first fought the evil that haunts this very darkness in the back of our mind, which has plagued this wonderful realm called Midgard. So Midgard is what we call Earth, and so in the Dranger or the Viking way, the ways of the Danes, the Norse, the Swedes, the Scandinavians, and etc. Um, we call Earth Midgard. It's one of the 9 realms. That's why I wanted to leave because this is all period based. This all takes place during the day of during the time of Dane law. Hey, Robin. So that's why this is written this way. So you'll hear things and it's going to sound different to you because that's how it was in this time frame. And this is when this book takes place was back during the time of Dane's law, during the time of Ragnar Lothbrok. Um, for 1,000 years, give or take a few 100 years. Perhaps this is the best place to recount the very beginning of Grimson's life. Grimson was born to a shield maiden named Berinda. There is not much known about her, and that's why I didn't give her last name because she wasn't a well-known shield maiden. She was a known shield maiden, but not a well-known shield maiden. So that's why I didn't give her a last name. Or well, I mean, I think I do in book 3 if memory serves me right. But I'm putting it out here because I'm building a background into Grimson and how he becomes who he is. Um, the Shield Maiden. There's not. She is from a farm in North Norway. Her family was not well talked about. The story goes that King Ragnar was traveling and came across Brenda in the woods near her home. It is speculated that they came together, and as a result, Grimsson was born. This cannot be proven, but this is the only known story of who Grimsson's father is. Brenda never talked about it, and it is known that when Grimsson was 10 years old, King Ragnar gave him a brown bear cub. Um, thank you, Carl. Grimsson called him Bjorn. Now, Bjorn is Norse for bear. So he was calling that bear cub bear. And it was very common for them to have brown bears in their home or even taking them into battle. They were very well known for doing that. And that's we're going to kind of see that play out in the beginning of this book. So being he was 10 years old, he couldn't think of a good name, so he just called him uh, Bjorn, which is bear. I read the Mighty Thor comic books back when I was younger. Um, Midgard, isn't there a bridge that has to be crossed through Midgard? So you're talking about the Rainbow Bridge. Yes, the Rainbow Bridge is the only bridge that connects the nine realms and can only be accessed by the Aesir and the Volnir. Now, Thor's comic is great. I loved it, but it's not accurate. Thor was red haired, red bearded, big, burly, and not the smartest of the gods, but he was the strongest. He was known as the protector of Midgard and Asgard. Asgard is where the Aesir live. And now, after the war between the Aesir and the Volnir, some of them stayed in Asgard. The others went to other places as well. And then there was marriages between other different gods. Now, the theory behind why there's Aesir and Volnir is because the what you call nowadays a Viking, which is actually they're a branch of a Germanic tribe. That's why that language sounds very common to German because they are a Germanic tribe. So they believe that one believed in the Aesir as the gods, and the others believed in the Volnir as the gods, and that's where the supposedly the battle between them, and then the joining of the two. Now you have the Aesir and the Volnir. Grimson and Bjorn were inseparable. They did everything together and were like brothers. Brenda never married and didn't give birth to any more children. She raised Grimson on her own and still went on raids to support her home. Grimson and Bjorn grew up to be mighty Drangers. They were always on the front lines during battle and were respected by both friend and foe. I recall a story that I heard during a raid. Grimson was so drunk that he went into battle naked as the day he was born. This shocked the enemy as much as so much that they fled, thinking he was a demon. I feel that I have rambled on enough. Let us get to the Saga of Grimsson. So there's the introduction. So I'm kind of setting it up to get to where we're at now and kind of give you a little back history on Grimsson because the back history is important. Oh, thank you, Peter Tate. You're awesome, dude. I appreciate you. I don't know why I didn't shoot my little hoo ha up here because my internet connection. But thank you for subscribing. I appreciate that. Let me make sure I didn't miss any questions before we get in here. Okay, nope. Okay, I'm good. I'm good. Okay. Yeah, they were. They actually 100% were. They were the most feared warriors of that time. Well, that's good to hear, bud. This is the first episode of. I got to change the title. It's supposed to be the book club, and this is the first book that I ever wrote. So we're kind of looking into it and reading it and kind of discuss it so people can understand where where the book's coming from and stuff like that. So that's what we're doing here, Peter, and I appreciate you for joining us. So chapter one's called The Beginning, the title of the book, because this is really where Grimsson is getting his start. I didn't want to start him as what he was. Thank you, Manisha. I appreciate that. I didn't want to start him out what he becomes, because I want you guys to get an idea of who he was before he becomes who he was and what made him who he was. So this first couple chapters is getting into that, and about the third or fourth chapters where we really start him. So yeah, this is the first of the 6 books I have published right now, Peter. Um, as you read my books, you're going to see my writing get better. I've wrote magazines, I've wrote in newspaper articles before, but I've never published books. So this was the first one that I published. Um, so this is a historical fiction cryptid horror. And anything I write, if I talk about a location, you can actually look it up, and it's an actual place. That's in my historical fictions, my historical fiction cryptid horrors, my sci-fi, my modern day fictions, my modern day fiction horror. Anything like that will be actual places. So our saga begins after Grimsson and Bjorn returned from raiding in England. They had been gone for 6 months and were rewarded very well. Grimsson and Bjorn had gone raiding with King Ragnar. The raids in England paid off very nicely. Most of the time, he felt alive while away and on the um, front lines of the shield wall. While they were there, they were also looking for land to settle and farm. Times were hard and food was always in high demand. King Ragnar knew this and was always looking for more land for people to settle. Grimsson and Bjorn returned to his mother's home. Uh, yes, thank you, Roxanne, for putting that up in her. Most of my social media sites are right in there, Tate. Um, so we usually do that. Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah, we can we can talk about it. But yeah, that'd be cool. Um, well, Unreal. We'll just have to keep reading into the life of Grimsson and see what may happen. And the 2 books is out, and the third done one as soon as I get done. So, like always, like she always did, she greeted them with loving arms and always wanted to hear of their adventures. It was a cool fall morning, and the leaves had begun to change. Brenda rarely raided anymore after suffering a disabling leg wound from a Saxon spear that had pierced through her upper right leg. The wound never healed right, and she could never get around very well. Um, Interesting story about Brenda. And honestly, I didn't do this on purpose. This is just how it played out, but I like it. My late mother's name was Brenda. Brenda is a true Norse name. And I subconsciously I put it in there and wasn't thinking about it. Because there's an element of me in all my characters in my books and an element of my family. That might be a future book, Unreal. That might be a possible Saga Grimsson Book 4 book. We don't know. I guess we'll have to wait to see. Um, it was painful to walk, and often she would have to stop and let the pain subside. She stayed and attended the farm while Grimsson and Bjorn went on raids. The wealth that they had gathered sustained them through the harsh Norwegian winters. Grimsson was only 19 and had already made a name for himself. Everyone knew who he was. Oh, thank you, Benicia. I don't know why my clicker's not clicking. I appreciate that. Uh, I've actually kicked that around, Peter. I've actually kicked that around. Are you familiar? Oh, crap. Are you familiar with his shows or any of his books? He's an author. Oh, you're talking about DA. I'm sorry. Brynhilde is an actual Valkyrie. There's a really good saga between Brynhilde. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but yes, I would look that up. She's an actual Valkyrie. Oh, that sucks, Carl. Welcome back, bro. Um, uh, everyone, everywhere he went, people talked about him and what he had done in battle. Grimson was a name that was building a legendary reputation. So back in these days, it was very important to have a reputation. Um, the more of a reputation you have, the more people feared you and the more people respected you. So building a reputation and building honor was very, very important to all Drinker, which was even starting to shadow King Ragnar's. It seemed that this made Grimson smile. He loved to fight and felt alive in battle. Battle was second nature to him and came with him with a great ease. He loved the sounds of metal banging against metal, the smell of coppery earth that blood and earth made when mixed together. Grimson had fallen for a local farmer's daughter, Alva. She was as beautiful as the morning sun in spring. Her voice was magical, soft, and sweet. Whenever he thought of her, his heart would almost pound out of his chest. His breathing would quicken, and he could not think straight. Many men tried to win her hand in marriage, but she loved Grimson. Every time they locked eyes, their entire world stood still. This was as if they were the only beings who existed. One morning, Grimson could not wait any longer. He had to have Alva as his wife. He would do anything to marry her. He could not see living life without her at his side. So he went to Alva's house and spoke with her father, Samson, which like I was describing earlier, means Sam's son. Um, was a great warrior and had raided with Grimson on many occasions. Grimson asked Samson if he could wed Alva. Grimson told him uh, that she was the only love that he had, and he could not and would not love another. Um, okay, good. I'm not missing any questions yet. Samson, like always, did what he did when he was pondering something. Gave Grimson a mean scowl while rubbing his chin, and said that only if Grimson could go to Mount Oxcolton, and that's an actual mountain, so you can actually get on Google Earth and look up Mount Oxcolton and see it. That's an actual place in the northern part of Norway. Um, and retrieve the spear placed there by Samson. It is at that is it It is at the highest cave guarded by a creature so mean that Samson himself nearly never made it out alive. Samson has done this to ensure that his daughter only marries the strongest bringer. Grimson grinned and stated, "Is that it? If that's all that it takes to marry her, then by Odin's beard, it will be done." Grimson loved a challenge and did not believe in monsters. He figured it was Samson just trying to scare him off. After all, Grimson knew deep down in his heart that Alva was meant for him. She was a gift to him from the gods. I remember watching a documentary on Vikings. They raided northern England a good bit. Three big raids are documented. I think they began to settle in places later on. Yes. So prior to Danelaw, they did, but they actually controlled most of England, Russia, Wales, Ireland, Scotland, parts of Persia, France, and stuff like that during the time of Danelaw. And Danelaw means this is just land that was owned by the Danes, and they're the ones that ruled it. So, I mean, it was a really hectic time. Uh, there is no one more fair or more stunning than Alva. Grimson remembered a story about a Valkyrie who fell in love with a mighty Dranger. Odin was displeased by this and caused her to sleep. He set challenges for the warrior to free her. If he had done so, they could have been together forever. If he failed, then she would never wake and they would never be together. This task felt much like this saga, but with a much better ending. So this is bits and parts of an actual saga that you can look up. And it's very sad what happened, but it's an actual saga. And it's not unheard of for a Valkyrie to marry a mortal. So that's why I wanted to put it in there because it kind of ties what's going on. Um, tons and tons and tons and tons of evidence on that, Vicky. One of the latest ones was they found a Norse ship in the Mississippi River outside of Tennessee that far dated anything prior to what they knew. Okay. No force on Midgard would stop him from retrieving the spear. Grimson looked at Samson, then smiled and set out on his journey to win the right to marry Alva. Grimson set out with only his axe and knife to retrieve the spear. The bearded axe was given to him by his mother, Brenda. Brenda had taken this axe into battle on many occasions, and it killed many of their enemies. It was a finely crafted axe made by the blacksmith Hoka, or Hako. Hako was known near and far for his craftsmanship. The clip knife was given to him by Björn Ironsides, the oldest son of King Ragnar. After Grimson's first battle, Grimson had wounded, and it added a word in there. Grimson had wounded 15 Northumbrian soldiers spying on them, spying on the raiding party. This was Grimson's first raid. Grimson only had his mother's axe and no armor. Grimson quickly dispatched the men and returned to camp with all 15 of their heads. Upon placing the heads at the feet of King Ragnar and earning the respect of all who were there. This was a feat that no one his age had ever done before. The whole camp talked about it. Quickly, Grimson's reputation grew. Yes, there's a lot of places that has the history of dragons, or dragons in their history. The Welsh are there too, and a lot of Danes controlled a lot of Wales, so that's not uncommon at all. There's a rock in Oklahoma that has Viking ruins. Yeah, and there's claim markers, which that's what you're talking about. It's a claim marker. There's claim markers all over the United States. Even a Native American talk about a tribe of white-skinned, uh, long-bearded, long hairy-faced, long-haired native tribes, and their description is very much Norse in origin. Um, There's also a village too, isn't there? Yes, there's yeah. They got a village. The most common ones I want to talk to them about in Newfoundland. They're in Canada, but there's villages all over, and like I said, there's plenty of native peoples talk about the tribes of these types of people. Some of them sounds there's different types of these white skin tribes. One sounds very Irish, the other sounds very Norse. Yeah, and they're not just across the U.S; they're across the world. They got them things all over the world. They're burial mounds. They're usually shaped like a ship, and that's why you can that way. It's very honorable to be sent to Valhalla in the ship, and you would take it with you to um, Valhalla. Yeah. They went all over. They were all over, and we're going to kind of see that in these books as well. Yeah. I may have to move my screens over so I can read it a little bit easier. Whenever King Ragnar looked upon him, he smiled. Grimson could see the joy in his eyes. But yeah, Bjorn Ironsides was always with Grimson. They had fought side by side in several battles. They were like brothers. Maybe Bjorn Ironsides knew what Grimson did not. They were inseparable. Once Bjorn Ironsides was laying under a large oak tree napping when three East Anglian men snuck up on him. Before the men could overpower Bjorn Ironsides, Grimson threw his mother's axe and it buried to the handle into the forehead of one of them. This caused Bjorn Ironsides to awaken, and quickly he killed the next. Before Bjorn Ironsides could attack the third, Grimson threw his knife and it buried into the man's neck. Blood poured out, and the man fell dead. Bjorn Ironsides looked at Grimson, and they both started laughing. Um, hey, Urso. King Kamehameha was his burial mound is shaped like a ship. Yep, and nobody knows where it's at either. Yep. That is not known to even a lot of locals. It's not known, but to the Hallies, it's definitely not known. Uh, After a day of travel, Grimson reached the foot of Mount Oxcotin. He looked up as far as he could see and could not see the top of the mountain through the clouds. He wondered if the mountains reached up to the bottom of Asgard. Grimson started his travel up the mountain pass. The further up he went, the colder it got. After a full day's travel, he had not yet reached the halfway point. He sat down on a rock and pulled out some dried meat. As he began to eat the meat, his mind drifted off to Alva. He could see her doing the laundry. She glowed in the sunlight. Um, they went down the rivers as far as the Mediterranean Sea, if I were yes, and had even yeah, and that's what I was talking about when I said Persia. Yeah, they had been in a lot of the Middle Eastern areas. Absolutely. Grimson was so lost in thought that he did not feel the frigid air seeping into his bones. His mind was fixed on Alva. Her beauty had no limits. After about 15 minutes of rest, he started up the mountain again. The climb began to get harder and harder. The air became thinner, and he finally realized it was getting colder. It hurt to breathe. Well into the night, Grimson reached a cave that Samson told him about. Peering in, all he could see was darkness. A feeling of dread fell upon Grimson. Every fiber of his being began to tighten. The hairs on the back of his neck began to rise, and his heart began to beat hard and fast. Grimson had never felt this before. In the many battles that he had been in, this feeling never came to him. Why is it? Why is it doing this now, and not one or something was different about this place. He felt as if he was being haunted and not the one who, or excuse me, was being hunted and not the one who was hunting. Maybe Samson was not lying. Why else would he feel this way? He had been stalked many times in his young, short life, but never felt this. This was alien to him. Every part of his being was screaming, run. He never ran from anything. Why would he run now? He closed his eyes. I must focus, he thought. I must complete this task. Grimson started to go inside when he heard a deafening howl erupt from inside the cave. Um, Sometimes I wonder if Viking or if the Norse raided further and further south because south became sick of hotter weather. It seems like I'm used to, yeah. Well, I mean, they come from a very cold land, so they enjoyed the heat, but they survived in the winter quite often. So cold weather was natural to them. Grimson backed up and took a fighting stance. He started shaking. Why am I shaking? He thought. I must ready myself for the fight that was about to come. Out of the darkness came the creature that he had only heard about in tales. It was a giant black wolf with yellow glowing fangs. Drool fell from the mouth. With every movement, he could see the beast's muscles bulge out. On all fours, he was nearly the height of Grimson. In his travels in England, he had heard the Saxons talk about werewolves. Could this be one? Could this be what they were talking about? Grimson knew now that this was going to be a fight to the death, that he was not in a normal fight. He could smell death coming from this creature. Its eyes felt like they were peering into his soul. Just the sight of this thing sent fright through Grimson. He thought to himself, this must be an offspring of Fenrir. Oh, man, I can't roll my tongue, so I'm thirsty. Fenrir. The wolf started circling Grimson, snarling and barking. He could feel the heat from its breath. His breath smelt like death and felt like fire. Then the wolf did something that Grimson never expected. It stood up on its hind legs. Vikings were in competition with the Mongolian horde. I've heard that. I haven't done a whole lot of research on that Urso, but yes, I have heard that a few times. I need to look into it, but it makes sense. It really does make sense. I mean, I've heard stories of berserkers that like a whole, I think it was like 10 of them had fought a bunch of Spartans. And the only survivor that was left was the only time that a Spartan let one go because they honored his battle prowess. I don't know. I've heard that. I read that story once in a journal or I think or something like that, and I've not been able to find it again to remember word for word of it. Um, It must have stood 9 feet tall and was covered in muscle. This was no ordinary wolf, he thought. How could this creature stand like a man? Remembering what the Saxons told him, they said that the werewolf could walk and run like a man, but preferred to be on all fours. When they were on all fours, they could move faster and could hide more easily. If this was the case, then maybe Grimson had a chance. Grimson started mimicking the wolf's movements. Both were walking in a circle. Grimson was studying how the creature's body moved. He was waiting to notice the muscle movement that they made before an attack. The creature reared back and swung its long claws at Grimson. He barely had time to duck and move and felt the wind from its attack. The creature is both strong and fast, thought Grimson. And before he knew it, the wolf was upon him. This thing moves fast, he thought. The wolf back into Grimson sent him flying against the cave wall. Grimson hit the wall and and fell to the ground. Pain shot through his body. He never felt such strength before. Blood started to flow from the back of Grimson's head and nose. His vision was becoming blurry. I must fight through this, he thought. I cannot die here. Grimson began to doubt that he could win this. Let's see what I missed here. Yeah, but even their empire didn't reach near the heights or the distance or the the large. They never conquered near as much as what the Vikings did. But yes, it was big. Yeah, the Vikings, the Romans conquered most of the known world. The Vikings conquered most of the known world and beyond. How could this be? Grimson had never been in trouble like this before. He had always had the upper hand in a fight. It would be easy for him to just give up and die, he thought. It could be a great death, worthy of Valhalla. The wolf struck again, and this one blow nearly knocked out Grimson. He barely made to his feet when the wolf was upon him again. Grimson could feel the creature's heat from its body. This is it, he thought. I will die here and never get to be with Alva. The wolf reared up, reaching his hands back high over its head. It is about to finish me. I'm about to die, Grimson thought. Then Grimson saw it. Why did it take him so long to notice? In this position, the beast was open for an attack. With a quick reflex from out of nowhere, it was as if the gods were helping him in battle. Grimson buried his knife between the arm and shoulder of the great wolf. Blood poured from the wound. The creature reared up and let out an agonizing howl of pain. The creature started to stumble back. He did it, and he had hurt the wolf. He knew now that he would be able to kill this thing. If I cannot hurt it, I cannot kill it. He thought Grimson, or if I can hurt it, I can kill it, thought Grimson. Um, he thought. Grimson studied the creature for a moment. He was waiting to make his move. The creature began to back off and stumble backwards. This is it, he thought. Now is my chance. It was at that moment that Grimson seized his opportunity and buried his axe to the hilt between the eyes of the wolf. The wolf came to a sudden stop. The wolf stood there for a second, then fell face first to the floor of the cave. Taking no chances, Grimson removed his knife from the wolf's shoulder and slit the throat. It was over. He had done it. He had won against this mighty creature. Grimson let out a mighty yell. Grimson sat down next to the wolf, blood dripping from the back of his head, nose, and mouth. Grimson was in a lot of pain. He needs to rest and regain his composure. Okay, I didn't miss anything good. Um, are you guys got any questions for now on the setup of starting to look into this? The Winter Wolves, yeah. So what he was just fighting there is what nowadays we call Dogman. Back then, that wasn't, Dogman was coined in 1984. So back then, everybody called them werewolves. That's why I wrote this way. Instead of calling him an actual dogman like we would nowadays, I wrote it historically accurate, and that was a werewolf. Hey, Scott. So that's kind of what. So I was hoping people would pick it up with the yellow eyes and stuff. What he was actually up against, but a lot of people don't know the history behind them. That's why I kind of told you. So this was actually a dog man he just got through fighting. What we call nowadays a dog man. But like I said, I like to write my books as historically accurate as possible. That's why I called him a werewolf in here. You guys got any questions real quick before I continue on? And like I said, Mount Oxcoten, you can actually look at it. It's an actual mountain in northern Norway. So you can take a look on Google Earth and see right where this battle was taking place. There's actual caves and everything on this mountain. Let's see, I'm not seeing any questions. Okay. Grimsson tried fighting it, but the darkness overtook him. He passed out and fell to the floor next to the beast. After a couple hours, Grimsson started to stir. His head was foggy, and he felt like he was drunk. Standing and walking were difficult, but were slowly improving. Pain riddled his body. After a moment, Grimsson went over to the beast and started skinning the wolf. He put the skin around him, but instantly he felt warmth. This skin works well against the cold, he thought. I might just have to turn it into a cloak. Grimsson went into the cave to retrieve the spear. It was dark. It smelled of death and decay, and he could not see a thing. Hey, Jessica, how's it going? Yeah, that's why I did. That's why I wrote it this way, Ursos, because like I said, I tried to write right thing as historically accurate as possible. So back then they wouldn't call, like I said, back then they wouldn't call him a dogman. They would actually call him a werewolf. Um, Feeling around in the dark, he put his hand in something wet and slimy. It smelt horrible. Grimsson almost vomited from it. He felt around and found a wooden staff. Upon further inspection, he realized it was a torch. Grimsson pulled out his flint, and the darkness unwillingly gave way to the light. Grimsson's eyes adjusted. There in the pile of rocks stood the spear that. There in the pile of rocks stood the spear erect from them. I don't know why it actually. I'll have to fix that again. It was just an ordinary spear, not what Grimsson was expecting. On the floor of the cave lay the chewed bones of many warriors who dared to try to retrieve the spear. Then he saw what he put his hands in. It was a pile of shit from the wolf. That is gross, he thought. Shaking his head, Grimsson freed the spear from the rocks and held it to his eyes. He began to smile and drifted off to visions of Alva. A smile formed, and Grimsson turned from the entrance and headed for home. The journey back down the mountain was faster and much warmer now that he had wore the fur. He could not stop smiling. He killed a mighty foe and earned the right to marry Alva. He could not wait to tell the people this tale. It would be one worthy. It would be one they would talk about for all time to come. Immediately, he would leave out the part of about putting his hand in shit. Laughing, he just kept walking. Um, uh, he did. He did, Urso. Yes, very much. I agree. I've always had a fascination with Norway and the places as such. I'm Irish mostly, but Cajun Irish. So, like I was saying earlier, a lot of the Norse, or a lot of the, well, mainly Norse and Dane both, controlled a lot of Ireland. So that might be why. Um, After a couple of days, Grimsson returned to Samson and handed him the spear. Samson looked surprised to see Grimsson again. He had dry blood all over him, and he was wearing the skin of the great wolf. Samson looked at Grimsson in disbelief. You killed the great wolf. I could not do that. If it were not for me falling, I would never have made it back. Truly, Grimsson, you are the greatest Dringer there had ever been. True to his word, Samson granted his daughter's hand in marriage to Grimsson. After all, he was not going to dispute this to a man who had done something that him himself never could do. On the next full moon, Grimson and Alva would be married. During that long month wait, Grimson built their home close to his mother's. It was in a clearing next to the trees. Now, the reason why I didn't say a month, I mean, I kind of put it in there because to let people know they didn't have actual time frames. Everything was based off of the cycle of the moon. So that's why originally I put it the next full moon, and I handed in there that next month, and that was to give an idea, the people an idea of the time frame. But they would actually go by the cycles of the moon. Okay. I think "were" is an old word that can be used with different things, though we know it's mostly in reference to the man wolf. Yeah, yeah. I'll agree with you on that one, Unreal. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yes. Uh, Gotta figure out where I left off here. It had plenty of sunlight and smelled of wild flowers. The birds sang their songs, and the gentle breeze blew through there. It was perfect. It was. This is where they would live. Over their next 10 years, Grimson and Alva were happily married and bore 3 children. The oldest, a strong son named Gunnar. Gunnar, at the early age, showed signs of being a future great Dringer, much like his father. A daughter named Brenda, who was so much like her mother. Beauty had no bounds with her. Her smile could lighten the night. She also showed signs of being a shield maiden, much like her grandmother. And another son named Olaf. Olaf was quiet but had great strength. They were incredibly happy and successful as well. People came to visit them often and talked about the love that they shared. The kids played with Bjorn, and he always kept a sharp eye on them. One day, Grimson and Alva were tending to the fields when an outcast, so um, kind of like the wearer of skin. Unreal says, Eric, what does the wear and werewolf mean? Like, where's the skin? Um, that's where the wear, is skin wear basically, and a better terms. That's what you would. That is where the term comes from. Like the Ulfanar in Norse legend, the Ulfanar, um, they wore wolf skins and became wolves in battle. They wore the skins. They were werewolves. Um, okay, make sure. Thank you for the question. That was a very good question, Unreal. So an outcast was somebody that broke the laws, and it wasn't bad enough for them to warrant execution. So they would actually get branded in the forehead and casted out, and they were no longer considered free people. Anybody who saw them could execute them for whatever reason, and no punishment would come before them. Back in these times, um, say I had a dispute with a neighbor. If I went to him and slay him, I had to go to the next home and tell them what I did and why I did it. If I did not do that, that went against the laws, and I could be brought up on trial at an offing in front of the Jarl. So outcasts were like thieves, rapists, just crimes like this. And so they would literally get a brand in their forehead, and then they were thrown out of the township and never allowed back in. Oh, there's my mouse. If you know of a curse, I want to say it means something along the lines of changed. Yes, That is one way of looking at it, unreal, or maybe supernatural. Yeah, supernatural. Yeah, that is one way. Absolutely, yes. I mean, it's definitely in the supernatural field, and changed is a good description of it. Absolutely. Um, um, One day, Grimson and Alva were tending the fields when an outcast set upon them. An outcast is someone who was banished to the wild to fend for themselves. They usually were not particularly good people. This outcast figured he could take these children and ransom them. He did not see Bjorn. He slowly made his approach through the trees, staying out of sight. He did not want the kids to see him and give away the fact that he was there. Before he could reach the children, Bjorn opened his massive jaws and clamped down on his back and chest, raising the man off his feet. He bit down hard, and the man let out a yell, and in an instant was silence. Bjorn had bitten out a large chunk, and blood poured from the man. The part of the man that was not in Bjorn's mouth fell to the ground. His body made a squishy sound when it hit. Bjorn dropped the other part of the man from his mouth. The kids ran over and hugged Bjorn. Bjorn was a fierce fighter on the battlefield, but was ever so soft and gentle with the children. He loved them. They were a family. He would give his life to protect them. When Grimson and Alva reached the kids, they saw them playing and the body of the outcast laying at the feet of Bjorn. Grimson smiled and thanked Bjorn for saving his kids. Bjorn rubbed his head against Grimson. Grimson petted his head and scratched his chin. Laying his hand over Bjorn's back, they just stood there watching the kids play. It was the perfect life, Grimson thought. Alva bought Bjorn a goat roast, and Bjorn ate it in one bite. Grimson, Alva, and Bjorn joined the kids in playing. Yeah, that is a good question. Absolutely, Manisha. The nights were just as joyful. They all ate together, and Grimson would tell them tales of the gods and amazing things that they had done. He also told them all the bad that Loki had did, but Loki also did good. Grimson did not leave those out. There was always plenty of food and love in the home. Grimson was the happiest and luckiest man alive. Alva was a good cook and a loving mother and wife. She kept the house clean and food on the table. She and the kids helped with the outside chores when needed, and Grimson would help with the house chores, although he did not like them doing them. Samson visited often, was always playing with the kids when he was over. They would wrestle and practice fighting. He was proud of the life that Grimson provided for his daughter and the strong children they made. Um, it seems werewolf and SW are similar. They are. They are. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, unreal. Both shapeshifters, but Dogman to me seems like a pure spirit that becomes flesh and blood. Um, Intermediately, it's different than any other shapeshifter. So, if you there's a lot of stories throughout history of what we call dogmen now. They're throughout all history they're known as natural born, means they were born this way. Even the native people here in the United States consider them the same as Bigfoot, and that is the elder big brother, the first beings. They were here before humans were here. And you'll see that throughout all ancient cultures talking about these type of entities being natural things, their own tribes, their own villages, mighty warriors. I mean, you'll see it throughout there. Then you'll see the differences when they talk about the ones that's cursed, either by a god, by a witch, or whatever. And that's how you can tell the differences between them. Any shapeshifter that is connected to humans in some way, that is, it does things werewolves or SWs never does, really, in my opinion. Yeah, there's a huge difference, and you can definitely hear that within the stories throughout history. Um, If Grimson was off raiding or fighting and Samson did not, he would come over and help take care of the place while he was gone. Grimson looked up at him. He saw him as a father, whom he did not have. Grimson would help Samson when needed and shared in his wealth from raiding when Samson could not go. Brenda helped as well, and since she was close, she was over every day to aid in the chores. This was a perfect family group that they were a part of. No one looked down on each other, and they all helped when needed. Even though Samson was the elder, he often had Grimson make the decisions on what to do. Samson was a better dringer than he was a leader. Grimson had a good head on his shoulders and was able to figure out what was best. And he was a far better and quicker thinker than he was. Samson has seen with his own eyes when raiding in Russia how smart Grimson was. One time they were outnumbered 6-1. Hope was quickly dwindling, and it did not look like they could make it back from this one. Everyone had prepared to go to Bahol that day. Grimson stood out in front of everyone. Brothers and sisters, look there on top of that hill. Do you see it? Do you see what awaits us? Those men are not Vikings. Or, I missed it. I don't know why that changed there, but okay, it's supposed to be Drangers, but we'll keep it to where it is. We are Vikings. We should not feel fear. They should feel fear. This was, yes, we are outnumbered 6-1. Hell, I like those odds. With those odds, it means that we will return to Norway much sooner than we thought. No one can stop us. No one can be our equal. When I look at them, I almost pity them. Yes, pity, I say. You ask me why I pity them? Well, brothers and sisters, it is because they will soon meet their gods before we meet ours. Are you with me, brothers and sisters? Will you fight with me? So you kind of seen the passion of him taking over a battle and how he thought in battle. And that's why I kind of wrote that way. Although that's supposed to be Dringer, not Vikings. I must have forgot to change that. Everyone started beating their shields and screaming their war cries. The Russians began to feel fear. Some started running from battle. With that speech, everyone ran towards the Russians. It was a one sided victory. 30 men defeated 90. They suffered great losses. We suffered one. The one loss we suffered was a rogue arrow that punched a mead barrel. It was a sad day indeed. From that moment on, Samson knew that Grimson was going to be a great man and a great Dringer one day. He also knew that when that time came, Samson would stand at his side until Valhalla. Grimson and Alva were also improving their home. He only wanted the best for her and the children. After all, wealth poured in for him, and he did not need the new weapons, nor did he need new armor. He was happy with what he had. They never failed him. He took care of them. He kept his weapons sharp, and his armor was maintained. Yeah, I never thought about that, but yeah, that's true. I played that game once. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, my kind of warriors I like. Yeah, and that's how we were in the Marines. That's why I kind of wrote that way too. That's very much our mentality when I was in the Marines. Best kind of warriors is ones who don't turn tail and run. Absolutely, absolutely. Um, Grimson and Alva were all. Let's see. He laughed at everyone who was always going out and buying new weapons and armor. One day, Bjorn Ironsides had asked Grimson why he kept the same gear. Grimson looked him straight in the eyes. Brother, the weapon does not make the warrior. The warrior makes the warrior, he said. Grimson. Bjorn Ironsides thought on those words for a moment and nodded in agreement. I guess you're right, brother. You have never lost, and you're still ugly as ever, and said Bjorn Ironsides. They both laughed and went back to drinking. Bjorn and Ironsides and Grimson were together, or were always together. They were always close, and they knew that they could count on each other. They were the best of friends. So, warning alert. Uh, chapter 2, Time for Pain. This was a hard chapter for me to write, but I had to write this chapter to bring Grimson to life. Um, this is not a pleasant chapter, so I'm not going to hide nothing from you guys. This is going to be a hard chapter, So this is a warning ahead of time. Chapter 2, Time for Pain, is a hard chapter. Does anybody got any questions before I get into chapter 2 on this? Exactly, Urso. Exactly. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. Here we go. Everyone greatly loved Grimson and his family. Grimson and Bjorn were often summoned to raids for the defense of the land on which they lived. Raids, yeah. Grimson and Bjorn were the most honored amongst their jarl. They have won many victories and always the first to battle. They raided with King Ragnar often. Yep, absolutely, Roxanne. Absolutely. One time they were in Russia raiding for their jarl. His children were in the woods playing. They came across an incredibly old structure. It looked old and moss covered. There were leaves piled up in front of the door, and the runic was mostly worn down. They knew this must be so old that everyone had forgotten about it. As is for most kids, curiosity got the best of them, and they pulled open the door to the structure. It groaned, and dust fell as they struggled to open it. They stood there in amazement. This was the coolest thing they had ever seen. The smell of decay, mold, and earth filled their nostrils, and a feeling of dread overwhelmed them. Peering into the darkness, they saw a pair of blue glowing eyes. The eyes were just sitting there, staring at them. The children just stood there in awe. The thing let out a yell and started at them. The children jumped with fright, scared out of their mind, and they summoned the strength so quickly uh, to close the door. They screamed and ran quickly to the house. Branches from the trees slapped their faces, and with each slap it stung them, but that did not stop them. When they reached their home, the sun was setting, and they saw their grandmother Brenda and their mother Alva crying and rattled. They told the story of what happened. Alva and Brenda both looked at each other in total fear. They knew what the children had seen. This was a creature of pure hate and rage. By opening the tomb, they upset the creature, and they knew it would not be long before it came for them. From the darkness of the woods, they heard it yell again. They hurried inside their home and started barricading the doors and windows. Grabbing what weapons they could, they all stood in the center of the home. Gunnar spoke, asking, what is it that they were scared of?" Alva looked at him and said, "You have disturbed the Draugr. In the old tomb, Draugr are undead beings that live in the tomb. They survive living off of blood and eating flesh. For the most part, they do not bother the living unless they are wronged, unpopular, greedy, or evil when they were alive. They do, on occasion, torment the living mostly in dreams. When you kids open the tomb, you disturb them, and now they want revenge for your actions. They have superhuman strength and the stench of decay. They protect the treasures in the tombs and will kill anyone who dares to try and take it. Mama, we did not try to take anything. We swear," cried the children. That may be so, young ones, but the Draugr does not know that. They do not think as we do. To them, you tried to rob them, and they could not let that be. There's always a point to where there might be no place to hide or somewhere to run to. So, for sure, it's life or death. Yes. They are rumored to be able to go through solid rock and increase their size and strength. Grandmother Brenna asked, if they could move through solid rock, what would stop them from getting in here? Brenda looked up at with fear in her eyes, but neither Alva nor Brenda said a thing. They both knew that if the Draugr wanted in, there would be nothing that could stop them from doing so. We have to dismember them and burn the bodies, said Brenda. We cannot wait for it to fully decay. There are only these are the only ways to kill them. Alva nodded and said, "Well, we know what we must do then." Brenda just nodded. They were holding on to the hope that the Draugr would not pursue them, but knew deep down inside it would come for them. Fear began to build up inside them, and they started shaking uncontrollably. All Alva could do, I think, was that she wished Grimsson was here. She closed her eyes and thought about the life that they had. It was a perfect life, and she would not want anything different from it. When the sun set, they heard the cry come from the woods, and out of nowhere, the house began to shake as a Draugr pounded on the walls. The children started crying. Alva and Brenda raised their swords, prepared to defend their home. From a dark corner to their right came a pair of blue glowing eyes. It was inside their home, and there would be horde this night. I've heard that in a couple of the sagas about the Draugr, but most of them it didn't matter what you did. You read most of the sagas that talk about Draugr, there's nothing you can do. I mean, they're evil and they're one side one thought process, and that's it on them. They are the Norse version of not only a vampire but a zombie, and they are one of the most scariest and deadliest creatures that any type of Norse or Dane or any of them would ever encounter. Uh, Dang, let me get a drink. My throat's drying up. Uh, Before anyone can act, the Draugr grabbed Brenna. She screamed for a second and was silenced as the Draugr ripped her in half, and blood splattered everywhere. The Draugr threw her remains to the floor. Brenna's eyes were still open, looking at her mother. The fear frozen in her face told a story all of its own. Ava, in horror and pain, lunged at the Draugr for what it did to her daughter and began to fight it. Ava slashed the Draugr and kicked it. They swung at each other, blow after blow. With all Alva's might, she fought the Draugr and even landed hit after hit, and it had an insignificant effect on it. She was wearing down rapidly. It was only a matter of time before she could be out of the fight. With all her effort, she only managed to remove an ear. With a surge of energy, Alva fought back again, only managing cuts, but nothing more. After a few minutes, the Draugr prevailed, and with a mighty blow dispatched Alva's head from her shoulders. Blood fountained out of her body, covering the ceilings and the rafters. She had fought mightily against this creature, but was not a match for it. In shock and anger, Gunnar picked up his mother's bloody sword and began to fight. Gunnar fought like a berserker. The Draugr was caught off guard by the might of the boy and how he was actually hurting him. With every swing, the Draugr felt the pain as the boy was overpowering the Draugr. With every strike the Draugr threw at the boy, it fell on empty air. Gunnar ran up the wall and jumped backwards, flipping over the Draugr, who missed the boy. Before Gunnar landed, he slashed the Draugr's back, cutting deeply. It cried out in pain from the attack, and Gunnar started smiling. He was beating the creature. The Draugr began to back up from the fury of the boy, when all of a sudden it let out a yell and grew 4 foot and doubled its strength. Hey, Moxley. Or did I miss? I'm sorry, I just read quick out of the corner of my eye. My bad. I just caught it as soon as I said it. Hey, Don. Where did I leave off here? That did not deter Gunnar, who was still standing toe to toe with the creature. Gunnar kicked it and sent it flying into the wall. Blow after blow landed, and all seemed to be almost over when the Draugr landed a blow, sending Gunnar flying across the room. Gunnar slowly returned to his feet and started back into the fight. Sadly, the onslaught did not last long, and the Draugr soon gained upper hand. Gunnar ran his sword through into the chest of the Draugr. The Draugr slowly looked at the sword and then slowly looked back up at Gunnar. Gunnar just grinned and spat in the face of the creature. The Draugr snorted and then fell to the then Gunnar fell to the creature with a thrust of its sword to the gut. Gunnar fell to his knees and then to the floor and was out of the fight. Gunnar lay there staring at the head of that was once his mother's. The Draugr then turned its sights upon Brenna, who during the fight hid Olaf under some furs. Brenna, true to her nature, fought the creature like a true shield maiden. She hit the creature, but it seemed not to do much. Every so often, she landed a good blow, but not enough to do much damage. Her legs started bothering her, and she could not move as well. The Draugr landed a kick that sent her flying into a support beam in the center of the house. She got back to her feet slowly and fought back again, but after a while, she fell as the Draugr grabbed her and ripped out her throat with his teeth. Brenna fell to the ground, gurgling for air. The Draugr picked her up and looked at her, then threw her body to the ground like she was a dirty rag, and looked around. It sniffed the air and smiled. It could smell the boy and knew he was close by. Still sniffing the air, he located the boy, tossing the furs away. It reached out and grabbed Olaf. Olaf kicked and screamed. The Draugr paid him no mind and disappeared into the darkness with Olaf thrown over his shoulder. A few hours later, the sun was rising and Grimsson had returned. Bjorn stopped dead in his tracks and started growling at the house. Grimsson took notice and knew something was wrong. Not only was Bjorn growling, but no one came out to greet them like they always had. Grimsson caught the smell of copper in the air. He knew the smell all too well. It was a smell that blood made when it gathered in an area. When a lot of blood had gathered, he had smelt it many times on the battlefield. The smell meant death. Grimsson took off at a dead run and broke through the door like it was a twig. Grimsson was met with horror. Blood dripped from all over the house, and the bodies of his loved ones lay about. Horror and pain overwhelmed him. Grimsson let out a painful cry that could be heard for miles, and at the carnage that lay at his feet. While dropping to his knees, crying uncontrollably, he heard a faint voice to his left. Oh, no worries. No worries. Yeah, I'm reading a little bit and then looking up, see if you guys got questions about the book. Yeah, no, I'm not going to lie. This chapter was hard for me to write because I grown attached to these guys. And so it was hard for me to write, but I had to write this because we're going to start seeing in the next chapter how Grimsson becomes what he is. So as painful as this chapter was to write, I had to write it this way. Yeah, ouch. Yeah. Father, Father. Grimson looked to his left and saw his oldest son, Gunnar, reaching for him, barely hanging to life. Grimson hurried over to him and picking him up and holding him in his arms. I'm here, my son. I got you. You will heal. I will help you. Just stay with me. Do not leave me, my son. Gunnar told his father what happened, and as blood from his dying son dripped off his arm, Grimson listened. Grimson held his son close and noticed the light leaving his son's eyes. Grimson picked up his wife's sword and laid next to him. Quickly, he placed it in Gunnar's hands. Gunnar held the sword and waited to go to Valhalla. So that is one of the common things. If you was wanting to go to Valhalla, you needed to die in battle while holding a weapon. If you were not holding a weapon, then you would not be able to go Valhalla. So that's why Grimson did this. He wanted his son to go to Valhalla. You have earned that right. Tell your mother I will see you all soon, and that I love you all very much. Grimson started crying again. A few seconds later, Gunnar's oh my gosh, sorry guys. Gunnar's light had faded from his eyes, and he was gone. Grimson held the body of his son tightly to his chest. Pain and sorrow overtook him. He just started screaming uncontrollably, rocking back and forth, holding his dead son. Grimson cried and cried, kissing his son's head and gently laying him on the floor. Grimson went out and gathered wood to build a pyre for his family. After about 30 minutes, Samson arrived at Grimson's home. He had heard his yells and came running to see what had happened. He got there when Grimson was dragging the bodies of his loved ones out to the pyre that Grimson had built. Samson walked over him, and unlike Grimson's normal ways, Grimson grabbed Samson and laid his head on his chest. All Grimson could say was they fought like true Drangers and died with honor. Grimson broke down crying as Samson hugged him, and sadness fell upon him. No words could find Grimson's mouth to aid him in the grief of Grimson was feeling. Samson just held Grimson for a moment, then helped him put the bodies on the pyre. Grimson fell many times as they placed the bodies onto it. The man who was once Grimson was no more. He had died with his family, and sorrow took hold of Samson. Once the bodies were laid in the pyre, Grimson fell to his knees, sobbing like a baby. Grimson had never seen him in this state before. Grimson was always happy, tall, and strong. This man before him was just a shell of his former self. Both Samson and Grimson lost many close friends in battle. They always drank and sang songs of their adventures. Samson cried for the loss of his family and cried because he knew Grimson was no more. Yeah. I had to write that in there. Yeah. I because that's so important for that lifestyle back then. I had to put that in there. No, there ain't Unreal. There really isn't. No, especially knowing what it means. His son's going to heaven. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man, he loved his family very much. Um, As the pyre was lit, they stood there watching their loved ones burn in the fire. Smoke filled the clearing where their home was made. Samson kept looking at Grimson, and he was sad to see his son-in-law in this kind of pain. Samson asked Grimson what happened, and Grimson told him the tale that Gunnar replayed to him. Samson hung his head low. Draugr are evil creatures with no love for the living. After the fire long since died, Grimson grabbed a piece of still burning wood and took it to his house and set it afire. Surprised, Samson asked, "What are you doing?" Grimson just stared at him and said, "Without his family, there was no point in living." Grimson then asked Samson for forgiveness. He stated that if he had been there, he could have prevented this from happening. Samson told him, "It's not your fault. Or it's not his fault. and there's nothing to be sorry about. Grimson just hung his head and shoulders low. Truth be told, I left for glory. I did not need to go. Because of his lust for glory, his family had paid the price, and then told Samson that he was going after the Draugr and, with luck, would die as well. Samson tried to convince Grimson that he can still live and keep going. Grimson shook his head and said, "This land was his now. Without Alva and the kids and his mother, there was no point in living." Oh, thank you, Bobby. Bobby Singleton just became a member. Thank you very much. That's awesome. Um, okay, I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Welcome to the first book club show, Bobby. This is the first book that I ever wrote and published, and we're kind of going over it and talking about it. So if you got questions of why I wrote something a certain way, if I haven't explained it, please feel free to ask, and I'll answer it any way that I can. Um, he welcomed death and was going to seek it out. Samson tried to speak, but Grimson just turned and walked away. Samson knew this would be the last time he would see Grimson again, and sadness took hold. Samson watched as Grimson and Bjorn walked into the woods where the trail of the Draugr had gone. In just a moment, Grimson and Bjorn were gone from sight. Samson hung his head and turned back to his home. He needs to return and tell his family what had happened. Grimson and Bjorn walked and walked. Memories of his life with Alva raced through his head over and over. Grimson just cried and walked. Bjorn looked at him from time to time. He knew what was about to happen, and if Grimson was going to die, then then so was he. Before he had noticed, the trail ended at the old tomb. Thank you, Don. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I actually wrote this shortly after my mother had passed away. When I realized I could actually put my mom's name in here, um, I was going to change it, but it was a way to help me grieve. So that's why I left Brenda in there, um, because writing this was a way for me to grieve for losing my mom. Grimson sighed and opened the door with little effort. Both Grimson and Bjorn walked in. Drawing his weapons, he commenced hunting for the creature that caused him so much pain. After about 15 minutes of searching, he could hear something eating in the darkness. It sounded like flesh being eaten off a bone. Uh, he could hear teeth scraping bone and flesh being pulled from it. The smell of copper and decay filled Grimson's nostrils. As he rounded the corner, he noticed a Draugr chewing on what looked like to be Grimson's youngest son. Grimson strained his eyes to see better and came to realize that it was his son Olaf. Anger filled Grimson, and in the blink of an eye, Grimson went into berserker rage and cleaved the head off the Draugur's shoulders. Black blood oozed from the creature as it fell sideways to the ground. Grimson started yelling a painful yell, and out of the darkness came screams for more Draugr. There must have been 20 of them. Grimson and Bjorn went out after them. They went to kill every Draugr that came within reach. They made their way through the tomb. Metal meets bone and decayed flesh as Grimson swung his axe and every single Draugr that he came across. Um, Bjorn's massive claws cleaved through the Draugrs like a hot knife through butter. Draugr lay dead at his feet. Rivers of black blood covered the floor of the tomb. Grimson felt nothing. His pain dulled all feeling that he had left. Only pain and suffering filled him, and only death could release it. Then all of a sudden came a roar like no other. It rang out and seemed to shake the walls of the tomb. It was so loud that Grimson had to cover his ears. The biggest Draugr they had ever seen came into view. This was a different looking Draugr. Grimson and Bjorn went straight at it, but before they knew it, They were being pushed back by the might of of this creature. They could not land a strike one. Before long, it had them uh, back to the door. The Draugr did something unexpected. It shouted some magic, and fire burst from it and blew Grimson and Bjorn through the doors. They hit the ground and slid about 10 feet before coming to a stop. They were badly burned and could not move. As the Draugr came to perform the death blow, a burst of sunlight came through the trees and caused pain for the Draugr, and it retracted back into the tomb and shut the door. Bjorn slowly crawled over to Grimson and laid his head upon the chest of Grimson. Bjorn slowly closed his eyes and drifted off to death. From the light of the trees came a Valkyrie. She came to claim the souls of Grimson and Bjorn and take them to Valhall. Grimson could feel his body being lifted into the clouds. Grimson just smiled. It was time, he thought. It was only a moment away from him seeing his family. He could not wait to see them, to listen to their stories. I will get to hold them once again. Finally, Grimson felt happy again. Soon I will be joining them, the honored fallen, and Odin, the far wanderer himself. We all fought on the battle. We will fight on the battlefield, eat our fill, and tell stories together. The thought of what wonders lay in Valhall filled his mind, but always, more than anything that filled his mind, was his family. He was going to Alva and his loved ones at last. So, let's see, did I miss? Okay, I don't look like I missed any questions. So that was chapter 2. So you can see why that was hard for me to write. Um, but that has to bring in chapter 3 here, Rebirth, where we start seeing Grimson become what he is. Okay, there's the question. I'm sorry. So in some of the sagas, there's one. In other sagas, there's multiple. Um, and sunlight affects them. They do not like sunlight. So it's not like a clan or a tribe. It's just some tombs only have one. Some tombs have multiple Draugr in them, and that's why that was written that way. Um, but there's a lot of supernatural stuff dealing with Draugr, and that's why I wrote the big one in there because there is stories of a mighty one, a powerful one. But no, they're not necessarily a solitary creature. Although there is some that do, how do you say, haunt an area solitarily. Yes, but they're not necessarily a solitary creature. Oh my gosh, I hate hearing that, Vicky. Wow, that's that's messed up. I hate hearing that. I'm sorry. Um, if you want to find my books, you can find them at amazon.com/author E.D. Testerman, or you can type in the search bar E.D. Testerman. Follow my author's fan page. Please rate my books, comment on my books. Let's help get them out there. And that helps me to be able to get my books to a bigger audience. So the more ratings I get and the more comments I get, the more my books reach people. So if you do that for your favorite author, and it helps us out a lot. Is there any questions before I go to chapter 3? I want to try to get this done in 10 minutes. We may go a little over the 2-hour mark, but if we do it, we do. But is there any questions before we get to chapter 3 where we start seeing the birth of Grimson? That's good. I'm glad to hear that, Vicky. I'm so glad to hear that. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. So chapter 3 is rebirth. And the reason I named this chapter rebirth because literally that's what's happening to Grimson. So we're going to see this play out here. Upon arrival in Valhall, Grimson saw his wife, mother, and children. They greeted them with loving arms. Grimson's eyes was filled with tears, and he began to beg for the forgiveness for not being there. They wrapped their arms around him and told him he was not to blame. Grimson grinned at them and pulled them in tighter. Okay, good. I didn't miss nothing. Upon the release, he told them how proud he was of them and how well they fought a mighty foe. That he was so proud that they died in battle with honor. They were laughing and talking. It was a happy moment for them all. They were so busy talking, they did not see the arrival of Odin. Hugin and Munin let out a sound as they talked back and forth to each other. Grimms and his family all looked up in astonishment to see the Allfather himself, Odin, standing before them. Grimson bowed his head and asked for forgiveness from Odin for not seeing him arrive. Um, Odin just grinned and said, "There is no need for apologize. I understand, and I do not mind." Odin asked Grimson to join him for a walk. Grimson nodded and followed Odin. Odin looked at him and said, "Grandson, you are a great drinker. Your death was not yet warranted." Grimson looked up at him in confusion. Odin stopped and looked at Grimson. "Grandson, I am sending you back. There is much that needs to be done." Grimson asked if he could remain here with him and with his family. "Grandfather, my life is not worth living without them." Odin just shook his head and said, "You must return and perform the work that was meant for you to perform." Grimson again protested, "All Father, please, I beg of you, let this task fall upon another." But it was to no avail. Odin had spoken, and it would be done. Um, Grimson asked, Why must I be the one to do this? Surely there are others who are more worthy of this task." Odin shook his head. "You were born for this task, that only the descendants of a god can do what must be done." "All Father, I do not understand. You say that I'm a descendant of the god? But I was born to a farmer's daughter, with no father to call my own. I could not be a descendant of a god. I am just a mere mortal." Odin smiled and said, "You know who your father is, even if it was never said." Grimson looked at Odin for a moment and said, "All Father, if what you say is true, then why has he not come forward to tell me?" Odin smiled at him. "Grandson, it is not for me to make someone do as they wish. If he never told you, then that was for a good reason, or it was not. That is not for me to know or decide." He also said that his father was Odin's son. "So you are the grandson, and thus, or you are my grandson, and thus a descendant of a god." Grimson stood there puzzled in disbelief. Um, so this was written on one of the sagas that talk about Ragnar Lothbrok being the son of Odin. And so there's two different beliefs when it comes to Ragnar Lothbrok. The most common one is he was born to a king and queen, and therefore was the prince of Dane over in Danelands. But there is talk about, even though yes, he was born under the king and queen and the child of the queen, but Odin had slept with his mother, and therefore birthed Ragnar Lothbrok, and that's why Ragnar Lothbrok was able to do all the stuff he did. So this background is based off of that. So in a way, I'm saying yes, Ragnar Lothbrok is his father, but not necessarily coming out saying Ragnar Lothbrok is his father. Um, Odin then asked, "Do you not know how you were able to do the things at such an early age that no grown man could ever do? How were you the only one able to defeat the offspring of Fenrir when so many before you or before had failed. It is true that Grimson had once thought this, but only once. See, grandson, you are what I say you are, and you are the only one who could defeat the evil that plagued Midgard, Odin said. This was going to give he was going to give 4 gifts to Grimson and to aid him in his task. Oh, thank you, Manisha. Yeah, I had to put that in. I love this part. This is like one of my favorite ones. So yeah, I had to put that in. Um, um, the first gift was immortality. The second gift was the spirit of his lifelong friend Bjorn. So, who was it? I can't remember. Was it you, Kevin, that asked if we can have a bear man creature in there? I can't remember who was asked that earlier, and I apologize, but here we're starting to see that. The third was a sword made by the dwarfs Sindri and Broker. And lastly, a ring that the wearer or gave the wearer the ability to instantly go into berserker rage whenever the wearer needed. There will be more gifts in the future. Oh, berserker rage whenever the wearer needed. There will be more gifts in the future for him, but he will have to earn them during his battles. When he was ready, they would present themselves to him. I'm not happy about this, said Grimson. I do not wish this curse to be bestowed upon me, he said. I only want to be with my family. Grimson looked upon Odin and said, I know that your mind is made and that what you want will be so. I cannot change that, and will not and will do as you ask. Odin leaned over and looked Grimson in the eyes. This is no curse. What you're about to do is of great honor. You will battle creatures that the nightmares put in the heads as they sleep, or in men's heads as they sleep, and will be fighting and killing things that armies of men have failed. So we all know about nightmares, okay? People don't know that nightmares is an actual thing from Norse mythology. They were literally mares that entered dreams and gave people unpleasant dreams, hence the name nightmares. They were actual horses. So that's why I had to put us in there. Now, Draugr are known to enter the dreams of the living as well. But most of the time, when you have a nightmare, it's because the actual nightmares, the horses, brought those dreams to you. Where was I? That when he completed his many lifetimes task, he would be seated next to Odin in Valhall. He will see the world change and the gods be all but forgotten. He would see the birth of other nations and the fall of old. This is what Odin told Grimson. Chuckling, I guess in a way, grandson, it is a curse, but it is a curse with the highest of rewards. I am truly sorry that this task has called you to be the Dranger needed to uphold it, said Odin. Know this, that on your travels you will have many strong, loyal Drangers aid you in your task. True, they will all die one day, and you will live on. You will see some truly honorable men fight alongside you, and some that you will only watch from a distance. The ones that you will watch, you will provide aid for them without them knowing. You will witness the rise of great warriors, and in time see them come to death, either by old age or in battle. I know your heart, grandson. I know how their deaths will affect you. I wish that I could take that pain from you, but to be honest, you will need it to aid you and become who you truly are. Lastly, you will carry the name the traveler. You'll carry the name traveler to those who do not know you. For I am the wanderer, you will be the traveler. So that's how he got his nickname, the traveler. Yeah, that was you, wasn't it? Yeah, Bear Man. And we're going to hear a little bit more about that in a minute, real. Um, yeah, a lot of people don't know that's actually where the term night. So much of our beliefs, our words, our customs, and everything actually comes from Norse mythology. So, and that you'll see that as I'm applying that into the stories of this, so people can understand where these things actually come from. Oh, sounds good, Vicky. Yeah, that sounds good. Heck yeah. Um, Come, let me tell you about the gifts I have bestowed upon you. The gift of immortality was given to Grimson to aid him in the many years it will take to complete this task ahead. After all, he would be spending many centuries fighting these evil beasts, and the gift of immortality would be useful for that. Alas, it could also be seen as a curse. He will witness many close to him die, and as he lives on. There will be many battles in the future that the gifts will be different. Be the difference in victory or defeat," said Odin. "You will come to need this gift. What you are about to fight is otherworldly, and it will aid you." The gift of the spirit of your friend Bjorn gave him the ability to transform into a 14-foot brown bear with the strength of 20 brown bears. There will be creatures out there. There will be creatures of great strength. Some can seem harmless at first, but you will see that there is more to them. This ability will give you the strength that you will need to defeat them. So there you go, Unreal. There's your bear man. Um, this gift will give you an advantage. True, there are other creatures that he will meet that will be similar, will have a similar gift, but his would be different. The ability to transform lets you fight in any way that no other human could. The third is the sword called Slayer. And so this is where you hear about a sword Slayer. This is how he got Slayer. The sword is unbreakable, remains sharp no matter what, and it can produce a light that blinds anything it's aimed at. Lastly, no matter what happens to the sword, all Granson has to do is think, and the sword is in his hands. And the think of the sword in his hands, and it appears there. There will be creatures that human weapons cannot harm. This sword will aid you in that. Slayer can cut anything and will only be wielded by someone with truth and honor in their heart. Lastly, the gift of the Ring of Berserker, so that he can always go into rage when needed with no chant, drink, or waiting time. It was instantaneous. The Berserker lives strong in you. There will be times when you will need to call upon it. This gift, this is a gift of great strength and natural ability. It is a power that only a few could withstand, and all that could became great Drangers. The Dranger's bloodline runs through your veins, and it will be unbelievably valuable to you. Combined with the other gifts, you will be able to defeat any who cross your path. Grimson lowered his head and asked Odin if he could spend one day with his family before being sent back. Odin granted the wish. With what you are about to do for all life, how could I say no? Go be with your loved ones, Grimson. But come morning light, you will awaken back on Midgard. Grimson spent the day with his family. They talked and laughed and he held them all and was happy to see them. He spent the night making love to his wife for the last time. Neither he nor Alva slept that night. They made love and rested and made love again all night long. In the morning, when the doors of Valhalla opened, Grimson found himself laying on the ground where he had died. Grimson slowly rose to his feet and found that he was alive and staring at the door of the cursed old tomb. He rolled his shoulders back and forth a few times to loosen his joints. Rigor mortis had set in. How long had my body lain? He wondered. His whole body was stiff from death, and that once was upon him. It both felt good to be alive, but it also felt bad. Uh, Not because the pain from rigor mortis, but also it will be many ages before he could see his family again. Air filled his lungs once more. It felt like taking your first breath after being born. I guess in a way he was being born again. Grimson looked at the sky. Memories of his families flooded his mind. He was already missing them, but he knew he was about to start a new adventure in his life. Grimson closed his eyes and took in all the sounds and smells of Midgard. Admittedly, he was enjoying this feeling once again. Then his mind drifted to what had happened and why he was there. He remembered all the Draugr that he had killed, but also remembered that he did not burn the bodies. He wondered if they had time to heal, or if he was lucky that and they had not. The flood of those memories caused Grimson to succumb to anger. All Grimson could think about now, while looking at the door, was revenge. So that's the end of chapter 3. So I hope that guys, I hope this gives you kind of an understanding. Yeah, yeah, no kidding or so. Um, I hope that kind of gets you guys to understand more about Grimson and why he is the way he is. Which um, we're gonna see him mature more and more throughout the books. Um, I'm trying to get up here to see if I missed any questions. Okay, so I had one here. There it is. Urso says a sword made of meteorite. No, the swords were so Sigri and Broker were famous for making Mjolnir. Um, they made the drop rings that make I can't remember if it's 10 or 20 different rings of the same or equal value, and then they also made oh my god, golden bursty. So they were famous dwarfs. So Odin had them create this sword um, for this purpose. So this sword was made from iron ignet, was blessed with runes, was blessed with magic as they forged this sword. So yeah, it wasn't made from meteorite. In a way, yes, you can kind of say that because it had different stuff added within it, which I've never really described the making of the sword. I'm kicking around doing that in one of the books, but I have not done that yet. Um, but in my mind's eye, when I was thinking about Slayer, I was thinking about Sigrid and Broker um, forging this in their forge, and all the magic and stuff that was put into it. So yeah, I can put that in. I can put that in book 3. I can. So let me. I'm trying to remember. I know. So the runes of magic that the dwarves know, and the words of magic that the dwarves speak into their crafts, that's how Slayer was created. The same exact way as Mjolnir was created. Um, yeah. So the dwarves, their forges are forges of magic, of great powers, and they have runes about them. And so when they created stuff, they would not only the craft that they were creating not only absorb the magic from the sword, but would absorb the magic that the dwarves put in it as well. So it was made from iron inglet and and gold inlay, but was given magical abilities. So like it can emit a light when you say illuminos, which is Norse for light. You think Slayer in your hand and it magically appears. That was all done by the dwarf's magic. Yes, yeah. So that's what we're kind of seeing on the making of Slayer. So, being you guys are curious, and I have been working on book three. I just got in a slump on it. Wrote myself in a spot. I'm trying to figure out how to unwrite myself from that spot. I'll add that in there. I'll add the making because in book three you start learning more about Grimson, who he is, and why he chose the name that he chose. Um, Levet los manos, yeah, um, illuminos, light. These are all words that's used, and all my words of magic that Grimson uses is actual Norse words. Hey, William, how's it going? So that's why I wrote those in this book the way it is because, in essence, Grimson is a demigod. So he is able to hold the weapons of the gods. So Slayer is literally a weapon of the god, and no mortal can wield it like Grimson can. You guys got any more questions? I know we're over the 2 hour mark. Let me know in the comments how you guys like this first book club show. I want to try to do this at least once a month. Um, and so that way you guys can ask questions about the characters, why I wrote the chapters the way I did, why the storyline is the way that it is. All that's in there, and you'll see how all my books tie together in the Saga of Grimson's series. Now, there's the actual Saga of Grimson's, then there's the sub series like Emerald Legion, um, and the Vangerian Guard, and now Beast of the Ozarks. Those are all sub-series off the Saga of Grimson. They all tie to Saga of Grimson, and Saga of Grimson is a part of those books as well. Originally, Beast of the Ozarks was not. It was going to be its own separate deal, but how it played out, I end up writing that as a sub-series of Saga of Grimson, and Grimson is now a part of it. Thank you, Manisha. I appreciate that. Well, the reason why I don't want to do it more than once a month, bro, is because I do so many shows between me, you, Jessica, and whoever else I'm on with. I just don't have enough time to do one more regularly. That's why we're starting it out right now as once a month. And like I said, this was a suggestion from the members only. I will be doing another members only live here soon. I've just been too busy to be able to do it here lately, so that's on me. And I apologize to every single one of you guys about that. But this is, and I'm hoping for all those who attended to the members only live that made this suggestion on this show. Let me know if this is what you was looking for, because I know you wanted us to read in my books, kind of talk about them, and like I said, this gives a chance for even those who's not members only, they can also ask questions about these books as well. Here in a couple months, long as I'm not, I had to go into work today. Long as I'm not having to work, I will have the first episode of Writer's Workshop, which was another suggestion from the members only, where I'll get another author on with me, and we will talk about our writing styles. Thank you, Vicky. Thank you so much. Eric Unreal says, Eric, thank you for sharing, for the sharing. Now I know a few things that I didn't know, and things I didn't know for sure. Not a problem. That's why I had fun doing this. I had a lot of fun, and so I was happy to do this. Yeah, it's in Times New Roman, New Times New Roman, size 12, because that was the actual manuscript for the book, which I noticed for some reason it changed again. So this is the third time I'm going to have to go back in and fix a lot of that's in here. I don't know why it's not saving properly. But I'm going to have to go in and fix it again and upload it, because that tells me it probably wasn't uploaded right either. Uh, but that's why it was kind of nice for me to be able to read it. But if you're on a phone, yeah, it's going to be hard, because that was the actual manuscript for the book. Yeah, so that was, I try to do that every once in a while, and that's just, me working on something, letting you guys kind of get a feel for it. It's not going to be every single time I'm working on a book. Just every now and then I'll hop on a live. That's just a bonus for you guys to, see me at work and see what my process is going through this when I'm writing. It's just a bonus to all you guys. That's why I do it that way. You can make it a members only under live on StreamYard, or record it and be live chat. Yeah, I've thought about that. We'll see what the future plays out. If this ends up being a bigger hit, we may end up doing more of these. But really, the only days I can do them is a Friday. So, and that's going to be, especially me being a new position at work, I can't commit to something that solidly right now, because I'll be working a lot more than what I used to. I was at Lodge last night, which I got elected as master of the Lodge again. I didn't get home till almost 11 o'clock last night. Had to be back up at 5 o'clock in the morning, um, and then be back at work. So normally this is a day off for me, but I had to go into work. Thank you, Unreal. Why aren't you highlighting? There we go. Thank you, Unreal. Oh, what did I miss? Oh, yeah, yeah. We're waiting on it to get published. Yeah, yeah. He's waiting on the cover. Correct, Don. Last I thought. Let's see here. Plus, you edit things and can think of other directions, like with the CDC zombie Burness book you'd forgot. Actually, I didn't. Yeah, yeah, because I wrote the military's anti-zombie so-called training manual. But yeah, I forgot the CDC one. So yeah, I mean that's why it's fun to do that stuff. So, and how I did this when I was showing you how to properly spell Bringskeppy. That's actually what I do. Like if I forget how to spell something or I forget what something's called, I got to look it up. Hey, yeah, I'll be there, bro. I'll be there. Yeah, we got that in a couple hours. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, man. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining the first episode of the book club. Like I said, I got to fix the title because I forgot to put the book club. I just put book club. Um, if you guys are happy with that title for that show, we'll keep it that way. That was the suggestion on the members only. I kind of like it myself. Um, and then here in a couple weeks, I'll get with D. DA is going to be my first guest on the Writers Workshop. So I need to be able to try to get that ready. Hopefully, I won't have to go into work because I'll be, like I said, I'll be working more than I used to now that I'm in this new position. So that being said, I'll see you guys in a little bit on William's show, and then I'll have to get everything set up for tomorrow's show. So until a couple hours, everybody, peace, love, and blessings to you all, and thank you so much for coming in. To my new subscribers, all the way to my OGs, thank you so much. You guys are awesome. Thank you for coming in and listening to me talk about my books. Thank you for the feedback on the books. Remember, go to my Amazon's author page, rate my books, comment, which help get them books out there. Um, give a hand to my mods. My mods are great. They really help me with that show, and I'm truly blessed. And thank you for every single one of them. So I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.